Hello and welcome to the 63rd episode of the PEM podcast, the Psychic Eye Mystery Podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Laurie, with my fabulous sister, Sandy, coming at you from our respective homes. We're no longer hanging out up in the thumb of Michigan. We're back to reality. It's like bittersweet. That was a nice vacay. That was really a nice vacay. It was so great to hang with you. But
yes,
you know, it is kind of good to be home, right?
for sure. Yes, I still feel like I'm whirling dervish, but yes, it is always good to be home. Sleep in your bed, own pillows, you know.
Yeah. Comfort, your food in the fridge. Yeah, only yourself to take care of. It's nice.
Yeah.
So you're wearing white after Labor Day.
I am. I'm wearing white after Labor Day because I thought, why is there this myth out there about not wearing white after Labor Day? And
so faux pas.
I know, right? I came across this article written in Vogue magazine that talked about where the edict actually originated from, and it stems back to the Gilded Age, when
when is the Gilded Age? Like, when is that? That's Victorian.
It's like 1850s, rough and tough. So members of high society would start to leave the cities in droves in favor of like getting out into the country and being near water. So either they vacated Manhattan and headed for Newport, Rhode Island, or Southampton in the Hamptons. And because it was cooler and they weren't having to get as dressed up by being in the city, they started to wear linens, and linen tended to be lighter, more neutral oriented colors. And then at the same time, tennis, which was a co-ed sport here in the United States, started to really take off. So people were wearing white, as was the custom when it was established in France. So white became the color of the summer. And then when everybody packed everything up and headed back to the city, wearing white became impossible because the streets were actually mud. And there were horse-drawn carriages everywhere that would, defecate along the streets. People threw their garbage in the streets. Mind you, there
was no like sanitation back then, right?
No sanitation,
like, and no garbage workers.
No, and no packaging either. So it all kind of just decomped in the streets. Yeah, Le Pew. So if you decided to walk, leave the house in white, you'd be covered in grime, and it would be obvious. Yes. Yeah. And then the other reason for wearing white in the summertime was because it hides sweat, and apparently that was a big social faux pas to sweat in front of the opposite sex. So that's why the lore came about, where you didn't wear white after Labor Day. And fast forward into the 1910s and 20s, when we had automobiles and paved roads. I think it was in the 1920s in Manhattan in particular, they established a sanitation department, and the sanitation department wore white to show that it was sanitary and clean and kind of a medical connotation. So they were wearing white uniforms.
So garbage men were wearing white uniforms.
Sanitation workers were wearing white uniforms. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Sanitation, politically correct.
Yes.
Sanitation workers were wearing white. Like, wouldn't by the end of the day, like, they just be covered in
grossness? No, because now you have paved roads, and you have cars replacing horse and carriage. And then there was a specific effort to clean up the city streets of garbage and waste. So the sanitation workers were kind of focused on that. So it continued, right? Not wearing white. You didn't want to be associated with cleaning up the streets per se. Right. After Labor Day. So that's why
you don't want to be mistaken for a sanitation worker.
Right. I guess. I guess. So today, streets are paved, regular collection of trash and sanitation. We have sanitary conditions, we have bathrooms, we have all that. And yet people still think never wear white after Labor Day. And the reality is you can wear white year round without committing any social faux pas, according to Vogue magazine. And in this article, why can't
white's a color too?
Right, it is. According to Elise Taylor, who wrote this article, Why Can't You Wear White After Labor Day, for Vogue magazine, which is dated 9/1/23. So if you'd like to learn more about the history behind why we can't wear white after Labor Day, please check out Elise's article.
You know what's so funny is, like, I really am self-conscious about wearing anything white after Labor Day, but I'll wear cream. Like, I have a beautiful pair of Freebirds boots to die for. And they're cream.
They were not free, by the way. They were not free.
They're not free.
Freebird is the brand.
Absolutely not free. but they are like wicked, wicked cool. Anyway, and I'm just looking through my wardrobe going, okay, I can wear them with those, with that, with that, with that. So for me, and I know especially like white shoes are really faux pas. But I figure cream is fine. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna like be like, they're not white, they're cream. But I am very conscious of not wearing,
Yeah.
I guess it's just been instilled in us, right? For
It
all of these
has.
years.
Yeah. So
So
I'm here to break up with that. Wear
I
white
love
year
it.
round.
I
And
love it.
I think I know that you can see auras, and I know that white is associated with like angelic energy. So if you're wearing white, you may be feeling a little bit more generous, more angelic. I don't know.
I don't know if that's true, but that's an interesting take there, Sans. If you want to like appear, I guess, more innocent and angelic and altruistic, throw on a little white,
Yeah.
throw on a little white. So, guys, if you wear white after Labor Day, send us a comment. Maybe post a picture. Let's see your white after Labor Day.
Well, we have now launched a Facebook page dedicated to the Psychic Eye Mysteries.
Right.
So you can find us Psychic Eye Mysteries podcast on Facebook. Happy
Mhm.
to engage with anyone that wants to leave us a comment, a suggestion, recommendation, show us your white, whatever. Comment
Yeah.
about my story,
Yeah. Nicely.
Nice. Sandy, you look
I keep
ridiculous in
getting
white. Thank you.
into it with the trolls and keep getting beat up for getting into it with the trolls. Listen, here's the deal. I don't put up with bullying, period. I just don't. So if you have a problem with my reaction to someone trying to bully me, F off.
Okay. So please join us on
Nicely,
Facebook.
I've been bullied since I was a little teeny tiny child, and it really is a trigger for me, and I don't stand for it. This is a podcast that I do with my beloved sister. You come after us, you're coming after her. F you if you're going to be an asshole.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, but please leave us your comments on Facebook.
Nicely.
All right. I also wanted to touch base on a couple of cases that we've covered that have some recent updates in the news that
Awesome.
I thought was interesting. So just today, Alex Murdaugh, who we covered in our PEM and 10 episode 4, who was convicted of a double murder of his wife and his son. According to the Associated Press, his attorneys have requested a new trial for his double murder conviction because they've discovered that the court clerk who was not presiding, but taking notes in the case, improperly influenced the jurors by telling them not to trust Alex Murdaugh when he testified in his own defense. And apparently the clerk even went as far as to have private conversations with the jury foreperson and pressure jurors to come to a quick verdict.
Oh my God.
So the new trial request has been, is accusing specifically Rebecca Hill, she's the Colton County Clerk of Court, of betraying her oath of office during and after the trial for money and fame by giving members of the jury business cards from reporters and then traveling actually to New York City with 3 of the jurors to do interviews. She's also
my God.
She's also authored the book, quote, Behind the Doors of Justice, the Murdaugh Murders, end quote. So Alex and his attorneys want the appellate judges to order an evidentiary hearing about their findings. And once they have more information on the record, then they would like to be granted a new trial. So I don't know.
You know what? Truly, everybody wants that asshole to serve time.
And he is.
He's a motherfucker, right? But really, you're gonna put his whole case in jeopardy? Really? And you're a clerk of the court? Like, goddamn, she needs to see some jail. Like, that's bullshit. Oh my God.
Hopefully they will get the evidentiary hearing and then the evidence can be produced to prove one way or another. This could be, a hearsay accusation. So we'll see what they have for evidence. But I thought I'd update everyone on where we stood with.
It's so upsetting. It's so upsetting because if she's done that in that case, what other cases has she influenced, right? So this is millions of dollars she's put in jeopardy because all of those cases then would need to be retried. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, potentially. Wow. So, but mind you, this was a really small county court, and I don't think they see a lot of action to the degree of what the Alex Murdaugh trial
Okay,
was
that's a fair
about.
point.
And then also, even if this particular case gets a new trial, the reality is he is already going to be serving life for his financial crimes, which
Right.
have yet to be brought forward. So
Right.
I think, based on your insights when we did the case, you felt that he was not the one that pulled the trigger.
I didn't.
And it could very well be that he just can't handle the idea of being convicted of something that he actually didn't do. I don't know.
Didn't do, but was so responsible for.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess he just doesn't see. I didn't pull the
Way
trigger.
to split hairs there, Alex. Way to split hairs.
Another interesting case that we covered was our psychic eye mystery, episode 41, about the mysterious death on safari, which per People magazine in August of 2022, Larry Rudolph, who was the wealthy American dentist, was convicted in a Denver federal court of murdering his wife while the two were on a hunting trip in Zambia in 2016. So just a few weeks ago, he was sentenced to life in prison for his murder conviction. And then in addition, his mistress/girlfriend, Laurie Million, was earlier sentenced to 17 years in federal prison for being an accessory to murder, obstructing the investigation, and committing perjury.
Yeah, so, not long enough, but okay. I mean, so, prison is prison. I guess 17 years could feel really long. I wonder if she's up, if she's eligible for parole and how soon that would happen.
I mean, these sentences were just...
I hope she serves the whole time. That would be good.
Well, it's federal prison for starters. And secondly, these sentences just got handed down. So they're at the very beginning of the whole spending time in jail. And then the third case that has recently been in the news is the one we covered on the Brighton axe murder, which was our episode 48, where James Krasniak was, after 40 years, following the death of his wife by a blow to the head from an axe, was convicted of killing her. And he apparently, unfortunately, died at the age of 71 while in prison, waiting for his appeal to come through. He succumbed to esophageal cancer. So in light of his death, it's the word in the news is that his indictment will ultimately be dismissed. So very sad. But in that case, you found him to be not guilty of...
There's no doubt in my mind, he did not do it.
Yeah.
He did not do it.
Yeah.
He didn't do it. I mean, you can argue with me till the cows come home. He didn't do it. Energetically, that man did not do it. It just doesn't exist.
No. And it didn't make sense to me that he did it based on kind of what facts we had covered. So, yeah. So please, if you haven't listened to any of these particular cases and you're interested, by all means, we've covered them in detail, and Victoria's offered some really interesting insights into each case and what she thinks actually happened. So check them out. Our PEM and 10 episode 4, our Psychic Eye Mystery Death on Safari episode 41, and our Psychic Eye Mystery The Brighton Axe Murder episode 48.
Yes. Cool. All right. You ready for a fun anecdote?
I am.
Okay. So there's a little bit of backstory to this anecdote. So I'm juicing now, right? Someone turned me on to juicing and I am in love with it. Whole process.
What flavor are you doing right now?
This is called snake bite. So it's ginger, carrot, and green apple. Oh my God. It's delicious because there's a little heat because of the ginger, and I love ginger. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite spices. So anyway, for juicing, you need a lot of vegetables. So I ran to Wally World. I bought most of the vegetables when I was still up in the thumb, and the only hopping thing in the town is Wally World. That's
I've been
pretty
there.
much it.
It's true.
Exactly.
It's McDonald's, Meijer, Thrifty Acres,
that's a thing,
and Walmart.
I know, right? That's besides going to the local ice cream shop. This is the highlight of living up there.
True. But the ice cream, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Grindstones, the ice cream.
The grinds, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was very, very good.
You order a small, it's this big.
Yeah, I know. One scoop is like 5.
It is.
I don't know what they're using.
Yeah.
And all the scoopers, their forearms are
I know, right? Big burly men.
And and anyway, so I'm in Wally World and I'm buying veggies, fruits and veggies, and then I'm just sort of meandering trying to find the self-checkout, and I went by the craft aisles, And I pause and I get this thought in my head, like, I'm going to learn to knit. I have no idea where this thought came from. It was so random. And so like the impulse was real, right? So I go into the aisle and I'm looking at the yarn and I'm like, fall's coming. I could probably knit myself a scarf. Why not? How hard could it be? Right?
Very, very
So
hard.
FYI, I don't want to spoil Christmas for you, but by the way, what's your favorite color?
What's your neck size?
Exactly. It'll be all, contorted and weird.
That's for breathing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Cover
I
your
plan
mouth.
to learn to knit from TikTok. Like I'm gonna go to the subject matter experts. So anyway, so literally grab some yarn and some knitting needles and throw them in, the basket and come home. And I get home and I'm looking at the bag with the yarn. I'm like, what was that about? Like,
I
that's
don't
just
know.
so crazy, right? Fast forward the next day. I'm reading for a client and her grandmother comes in and grandmother's like really talkative. It's wonderful. She's offering me all sorts of confirmation stuff. And she says that she wants to acknowledge the woman who does crafts like knitting, sewing, crochet, needlepoint, something like that, right? So I asked my client, I'm like, do you do knitting, sewing, embroidery, crochet? She's like, no, I'm really not good at any of that stuff. And I'm like, and the grandmother kept wanting me to acknowledge it, right? She kept insisting. And I said, well, does anybody living in your family, are they good at crafts? She's like, well, my sister's a good artist. And I'm like, no, this is like with hand stuff. And she's just drawing this blank. So finally, I tell her the story about the day before being in Wally World and grabbing knitting needles and yarn and being like, I'm going to learn to knit from a video on TikTok.
Yes.
And her eyes lit up and she goes, oh my God. She goes, I think I know what she's talking about. And the grandmother kept wanting me to indicate her, but she was saying no. So I'm like going in other directions. So she said that she inherited her grandmother's sewing machine, but she's so terrible at the process of how to set it up and how to get it started that she took a sewing lesson the day before. So I'm like, oh, we're both like, oh, that's what she's talking about. She saw you taking the lesson.
Very cute.
In order to get that out of her, knowing it was going to be a battle. She sent me to Wally World for knitting needles and yarn. So
my Christmas present, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Yours, the boys, anybody who knows me. Don't want to spoil the surprise.
Yeah, your publishing agent,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Literary agent. Yeah. Editor. They're all getting scarves. As taught on TikTok. So anyway, so I just think it's funny how like spirit is sort of sending me in these weird directions, with the rubber duckies before, because there was that whole rubber ducky thing.
There was, yes.
And
inspiration at Walmart. Who knew inspiration at Walmart?
Exactly. Yeah. So, don't blame me when you get your mangled scarf.
Thank you.
For a Christmas present. It's this woman's grandmother. That's
thank you. Thank you, grandmother. You used to crochet though, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. But like, God, 25 years ago, if you don't do it consistently, you lose how to do it. But
aren't the principles kind of the same? I know I'm going to get creamed on this, but aren't your hands are moving? Like,
yeah, hands are moving. It's like, once you get a rhythm down, you're just, but I think, I remember actually when I was crocheting was when I was first writing Abby Cooper Psychic Eye.
Yes.
And I remember being busy crocheting blankets and plotting, right? Because when your hands are occupied, you can sort of think about, okay, the next scene, the next scene, the next scene. So I found it very, very, not only just therapeutic, but really, really good for working my way through a novel, writing my way through a novel. So, Maybe
Excellent.
that's another reason why Spirit is like, get you some knitting needles
Yes.
and yarn.
So you can write your stories.
Yeah, I'm like writing 2 stories right now. So,
Well, speaking of stories, what book is it that you'd like to promote this week?
boop, what to do? Book promotion time. All right. Ghouls Just Haunt to Have Fun. I'm really proud of this title. Like
Yeah, it's
there are a
great.
couple in this series where I'm like, yes, nailed it. But this I thought we'd do because we're doing a Hollywood kind of wrap up sort of thing. And this book, which is, I don't know, the fourth, something in the MJ Holiday series, MJ Holiday Ghost Hunter Mystery Series. And this is the one where MJ first meets Heath, who's a major character for the rest of the series. And the continuing series, because I'm writing a book right now that features MJ and Heath and Gilly. So that's where they first meet, and where Gilly has canoodled his way onto a cable TV show with featuring other psychics.
Hell
So
surprise.
I know, right? So they head to this haunted hotel that has a spirit that is supposedly murdering people. It's a very violent spirit. And this was the point in the mystery or in the mystery series, where I decided to take a much darker turn and just ran with it for the rest of the series. And, divorced myself of the concept of this series being tied to cozy. I'm just like, oh, how dark can I get? And, unfortunately, my editors at the time were like, get as dark as you want. And I was like, cool, can I nail someone to a wall with a nail gun? Yeah, so they battle this demon. There's an attraction there. There's all sorts of good stuff happening in that book. If you'd like to check out that book, other books that I've written, almost 40 now. I think I'm writing my 40th and 41. 40 and 41, I think, are in the what I'm writing right now.
Incredible.
A lot. It's a lot. Yeah. I always wanted to get to 50. Like, I always thought, oh my God, 50 is so far away. And now I'm staring down the gun sight at it. It's within reach. So, and I'll probably keep going after 50. I mean, let's face it. I love storytelling. So
yes, you do. And you're very good at it. Yeah,
well,
for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, if you want to learn more about my books, please head to victorialaurie.com. I'm going to plug myself a little bit here. Head to victorialaurie.com. And if you'd like to book a session with me and have your grandmother come in and send me to Walmart to purchase something else odd, please head to victorialaurie.com.
Under $20, please. Keep it under $20.
I think I mean, yarn at Walmart is not expensive. I think I bought five bundles for like $5 a piece, plus a knitting needle. So I think it really came to like $30.
Okay.
Not to put a price tag on your Christmas present.
Not taking it that way.
Because my love will add so much more value.
It's the card that counts.
It is. It's the card and the thought. Yep.
All righty then. It's a good thing it's not beginning to look a lot like Christmas, because it gives you time to knit your scarf, right?
Start knitting.
Yeah.
Tear it all out. Start knitting. Tear it all out. Yeah.
All right. So this week's case, as you mentioned, we're kind of doing a final Hollywood story, and this one is about actor Johnny Depp and his controversy with his former wife Amber Heard. So the two actually met on the set of The Rum Diary in 2009, in which Johnny Depp was playing the leading role of journalist Paul Kemp. And according to Amber Heard, she and Johnny Depp began dating around the end of 2011 or the start of 2012. Publicly, by June of 2012, Johnny and his long-term girlfriend, Rebecca Paradis, had publicly announced their split after 14 years of dating and raising 2 children together, Lily Rose, who was born in 1999, and John Christopher in 2002. So in 2012, Amber Heard also split up with her girlfriend, Tessa Van Ree, after a 4-year relationship. Apparently, the relationship between Amber and Tessa was kind of tumultuous, as Amber was arrested in 2009 on a charge of physically assaulting her girlfriend when the two got into a disagreement at SeaTac International Airport in Washington. And Amber allegedly grabbed and hit her girlfriend's arm All charges were dropped after Tesa claimed that Amber was wrongfully accused by cops who misinterpreted and over-sensationalized the incident. By January of 2014, Johnny and Amber were engaged, and the couple got married in February of 2015 in a private ceremony in their home in Los Angeles. However, the marriage didn't last long because on April 23rd, 2016, Amber filed for divorce, and 4 days later, she obtained a temporary restraining order against her Oscar-nominated husband. In her court filing, she alleged that Johnny had physically abused her during their relationship and claimed that the abuse was usually while he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Her filing referred to a specific incident that occurred 2 days earlier on May 21st, in which Johnny threw his cell phone at her, causing a bruise to her face. However, a police investigation into the domestic incident radio call found that no crime had been committed. Johnny publicly denied these allegations, claiming that Amber was attempting to secure a premature financial resolution by alleging abuse. An out-of-court settlement for $7 million was reached on August 16, 2016, after Amber agreed to withdraw her request for a domestic violence restraining order and rescinded her spousal support request of $50,000 a month. She then publicly announced that she would donate her $7 million settlement to charity, split between the ACLU and Children's Hospital Los Angeles. The divorce was finalized in January of 2017, which included a non-disparagement clause that prevented either party from saying anything negative about their high-profile relationship and breakup. In 2018, the UK tabloid The Sun published an article with an online title that described Depp as a wife beater. 2 months later, in June of 2018, Johnny Depp sued the publisher of The Sun News Group newspapers and its then executive editor, Dan Wooten, for libel. The trial was set for July of 2020. In December of 2018, Amber wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post in which she spoke about the treatment of women in domestic abuse cases. Quote, "I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out," end quote. Despite not being named in the Washington Post op-ed, in 2019, Johnny Depp filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit against his former wife. According to his attorney, the op-ed depended on the central premise that Ms. Heard was a domestic abuse victim and that Mr. Depp perpetrated domestic violence against her. Further, Johnny Depp denied that he ever abused Amber Heard and instead claimed that she, quote, "is not a victim of domestic abuse, she is a perpetrator," end quote, and that her allegations were part of an elaborate hoax to generate positive publicity for the actress. In a court filing to dismiss Johnny Depp's defamation suit, Amber Heard provided details about multiple instances of alleged abuse that she said occurred during their marriage. She went on to claim that she had scars on her arms and feet from an incident where Johnny allegedly threw her through a ping pong table and dragged her through broken glass. In January of 2020, the Daily Mail released a phone recording of conversations between Amber and Johnny in which Amber admitted to hitting Johnny. Quote, "I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you, babe. You're not punched." Depp said in the recording, quote, "I left last night. Honestly, I swear to you, because I just couldn't take the idea of more physicality, more physical abuse on each other," end quote. Heard replied, quote, "I can't promise you I won't get physical again. God, I fucking sometimes get so mad I lose it," end quote. In July of 2020, during the 3-week libel trial between Johnny Depp and the UK tabloid The Sun, both Johnny and Amber provided testimony which focused on evaluating 14 alleged incidents of abuse. The trial also included written statements from 2 of Johnny's partners, Winona Ryder and Rebecca Paradis. Winona wrote, quote, "The idea that he is an incredibly violent person is the farthest thing from the Johnny I knew and loved. I cannot wrap my head around these accusations," end quote. According to Rebecca Paradis, Heard's accusations are, quote, "nothing like the true Johnny I have known, and from my personal experience of many years, I can say he was never violent or abusive to me," end quote. On November 2nd, 2020, Judge Andrew Nichol ruled in favor of the publisher, finding that the great majority of Johnny Depp's alleged assaults had been proven to a civil standard, and therefore the paper's characterization of Mr. Depp was, quote, "substantially true," end quote. The verdict found that Depp had assaulted Heard in 12 of the 14 alleged incidents and put her in fear of her life. The judge also rejected Depp's contention that Heard was a gold digger, saying in his ruling, her donation of the $7 million to charity is hardly the act one would expect of a gold digger. Amber later confirmed in the 2022 Virginia trial with the support of organizations she donated to that she was scheduled to pay the entire pledge donation within 10 years and that she was behind her payment schedule because of the suits that she was facing by Johnny Depp. On November 25th, Judge Nickel refused to grant Depp the permission to appeal the judgment, saying, quote, "I do not consider the proposed grounds of appeal have a reasonable prospect of success," end quote. In March of 2021, Johnny Depp was once again denied permission to appeal against the High Court ruling by the Court of Appeals in London, finding that the original hearing was full and fair and that the trial judge gave thorough reasons for his conclusions, which have not been shown, even arguably, to be vitiated by any error of approach or mistake of law. However, Amber Heard's abuse claims did not play out the same way in U.S. courts. On April 11th, 2022, a sensational trial to settle a $100 million libel suit began in Fairfax, Virginia. At issue was the $50 million defamation suit Johnny Depp had filed against Amber Heard in 2019 for her Washington Post op-ed and for Amber Heard's countersuit for $100 million, which she filed in January of 2021. Amber's attorneys argued that this lawsuit is centered around the question of whether she was exercising her First Amendment right to free speech by writing an op-ed for the Washington Post about her experience with domestic violence, and argued that if Amber had intended to describe a relationship with Johnny Depp, quote, "believe me, the article would have looked very, very different," end quote. Johnny Depp's lawyer countered that Amber Heard is a liar and that her accusations ruined her ex-husband's career and alienated him from producers who once favored the movie star. On April 20th, 2022, Johnny testified that Amber was the real abuser in their relationship and that her constant verbal and physical attacks contributed to his use of alcohol and drugs. He also claimed that in a particularly nasty argument with Amber in 2015, she threw a glass bottle of vodka at him, which he then deflected by putting his hands up in front of his face, and the bottle made contact as it shattered and nearly severed off his middle finger. During Amber's testimony, she was asked if she recalled the first time Johnny had physically hit her, to which she went on to describe that he had slapped her across the face 3 times after she'd giggled at his explanation of his tattoo, wino. Amber claimed she laughed in the moment because she was unsure what had just happened and thought Johnny had been joking. She testified that he slapped her a second time and said, quote, "You think it's so funny, bitch? You think you're a funny bitch," end quote. The actress said that she then realized that Johnny had not been joking, but she didn't react because she was unsure of how to respond. She said she stared at him and he slapped her across the face a 3rd time, at which point she lost her balance. Dawn Hughes, a clinical psychologist, testified in court about her 20 hours of clinical interviews with Amber, during which time she learned that Johnny Depp forced her into oral sex during instances of sexual violence throughout their relationship, often when Johnny was drunk or high. Quote, "These weren't loving moments, these were angry moments," end quote. Amber also testified that Johnny would often self-harm during fights, using knives to cut himself and putting lit cigarettes out on himself. She added that his self-harming became more frequent as their relationship was ending in 2016. After 6 weeks of trial testimony and less than 3 days of deliberation, jurors reached a verdict. Both Depp and Heard were found liable for defamation against each other. Johnny Depp was awarded $15 million in damages, and Amber was awarded $2 million. Immediately after the verdict, Amber released a statement on social media saying in part, quote, "The disappointment I feel today is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence still was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband," end quote. A spokesperson for Johnny also reacted to the verdict in a statement saying in part, quote, "6 years later, the jury gave me back my life. I'm truly humbled," end quote. From the very beginning, the goal of bringing this case was to reveal the truth regardless of the outcome. Speaking the truth was something that I owed to my children and to all of those who have remained steadfast in their support of me. I feel at peace knowing I have finally accomplished that. On Monday, December 19th, 2022, Amber announced on Instagram that she had decided to settle Johnny Depp's defamation case against her. Quote, "The vilification I have faced on social media is an amplified version of the ways in which women are re-victimized when they come forward. Now I finally have an opportunity to emancipate myself from something I have attempted to leave over 6 years ago and on terms that I can agree to." My sources for this article include insider.com, a complete timeline of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's tumultuous relationship by Jacob Sakarzian, August 17, 2023, and Wikipedia, Depp versus Heard. So it is a true he said, she said. Do you have any insights, Victoria?
Yeah, I've always believed Amber. Sorry. I've always thought, first of all, I think that erring on the side of believing women is not a bad thing. Because we have been disbelieved since the dawn of fucking time, right? Eve comes along, offers Adam an apple, and we are then the scapegoat from that moment on. And definitely, before even biblical times, I'm sure. So it frustrates me that she can produce quite a bit of evidence that at the very least, there was mutual abuse on both sides, at the very least, and be so vilified here versus in the UK. I feel like she had a much more fair opportunity to be judged. And I think that it's just so hard to think of the Johnny Depp, as the scamp, campy, fun, lighthearted individual that he plays in his movies, and who he really is, or actually who he has really become. I find it super interesting, the two quotes from Winona and Rebecca. So Winona says, the idea that he is an incredibly violent person is the farthest thing from Johnny Depp I knew and loved. I cannot wrap my head around these accusations. She puts the word incredibly violent in front of it, right? Incredibly violent, meaning, okay, was he a little bit violent? Was he slightly violent? Was he hinting at violence? That's not like, it's a word that is implanted as a buffer, right? To make you go, well, he wasn't that extreme. I didn't know this extremeness, but maybe she knew smaller versions. And that's my thinking. Plus, Johnny Depp has a terrible drinking problem. Like he's a full-blown alcoholic. I don't know about the drugs, but I do know that I read a very long interview in Rolling Stone, and the interviewer was just kind of gobsmacked at the amount of wine that Johnny would go through in an average day. It was just cases of wine he would go through. So I believe he has a really bad drinking problem. And this idea that Amber, hinting that he was a domestic abuser somehow hurt his career, bullshit. The thing that was hurting his...
Actually, he was dropped from a movie when her accusations came out.
Oh, okay. So, well, yeah. I stand corrected. But I think that it was also probably a pretty convenient excuse, by the producers, because the guy's drunk all the fucking time. Like you can tell he is under the influence all the time. And then Rebecca's statement, nothing like the true Johnny I have known. And from my personal experience of many years, I can say he was never violent or abusive to me. Okay. Was he violent or abusive to anybody else? It's what's not said that I find really interesting. If I'm defending someone who has never shown a hint of violence, right? I'm going to include not just myself, but everybody else, because I want to make it clear that he is wonderful to everyone. But I found it really interesting that she put in the "to me" as a qualifier. I believe her that he was never abusive to her. I believe Winona that he was never incredibly violent to her. But I don't believe that he's innocent at all. I don't believe Amber's innocent at all. I think that these two 100% brought out the worst in each other. There was another, darn it, I had another, nope. I had another thought, but I just now where I was going to make a point on I know it's gone. Where he throws her through the ping pong table and drags her through the glass.
Yes.
Really? That I have a hard time with. I don't, you get thrown through a ping pong table, you're barely moving.
Yeah.
The violence that it takes to throw you through a ping pong table is, I think, more than he's capable of.
I would agree.
It sounds
a little exaggerated, potentially.
Yeah. a lot exaggerated. So again, they're not blameless. Neither one of them is blameless. But do I believe that Johnny has a dark side? 100%. Do I think that she was given an unfair deal here and judged way too harshly here? 100%. That she's been turned into the villain for saying he's not the lovable scamp that you think he is. That's just bullshit. Like, it's bullshit. The fact that we continue to blame women for their abusers' behavior really drives me crazy.
Well, I think unfortunately Amber stoked the flames.
For
I think
sure.
that she didn't win any favors in the
Right.
process of the way she went about the situation.
Right.
I think people believed that she was as culpable in some instances as he was. Yes,
Yeah.
what she claims he did to her is horrific.
Yeah.
But I think what she did to him is also pretty horrific.
Right.
And so I think that everybody would have been more favorable toward her had she not been a perpetrator herself.
Correct. And the recording, the phone call recording is really, really telling, because when he says, I left last night, honestly, I swear to you, because I just couldn't take the idea of more physical abuse on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, admission of guilt. Boom, done. Like, why do we need to go further? He's just been caught on tape. I mean, yes, she's caught on tape doing it too, but that doesn't say that she made it up.
Agreed. I mean, I think the jury found them both guilty of defamation.
Yeah.
So the problem is that the award was so disproportionate to the situation. Right. Johnny got 15 million. Right. She only got 2 million.
Right.
So.
And I think that's in the awarding of that damages, I think it's proportionate to his career is, each movie is millions of dollars, and her career is maybe $1 million, if she gets put in anything. So there's this disproportionate effect of defamation on each other's career.
Yes, agreed. But
so that's why I think the award of damages came out the way it did. That's why I think it did. They're not innocent. Mm-hmm. They're both to blame. They both are violent. They brought out the worst in each other. They never should have started dating. They never, ever should have gotten married. But Amber wasn't wrong to speak out at all. She just wasn't. And I think it's just so sad that we turn women who bring out the truth into villains, mm-hmm. when all they're doing is selling the truth. It really bothers me.
Understood. Okay. Well, that's our he said, she said case, and wrap up for Hollywood. So as we mentioned up front, if you're interested in leaving us a comment, please do anywhere. We love to hear from you. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, by all means, join us on Facebook at Psychic Eye Mysteries Podcast. And if you'd like to learn more about my amazing sister and her literary works, please
go to victorialaurie.com. Yes.
And if you'd like to book a reading or learn about our Patreon page, sign up for our newsletter.
victorialaurie.com.
Or listen to any of our other podcasts. Those are all located on victorialaurie.com. Right.
Yeah. And I have a Patreon page too. So I'm doing, just plugging the Patreon page again. I'm doing Dear Victorious, where if you need some intuitive advice and can't afford a session, or don't have time for a session, etc., you can send me a message via Patreon, and if I feel something in the ether and want to comment on it, then I'll post an answer or reply. One thing of note, however, I do not comment on health issues. So if you are struggling with a health issue and you want my insight, you're going to have to book an appointment with me one-on-one. It's just not something I energetically feel confident doing. And even then, I'm not a medical practitioner. I have no background in Western science. The best I can do is identify what may be going wrong and point you back in a direction medically towards a doctor that might be able to help. So I believe in Western medicine. I'm big fan. So
and subscriber. All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in again. And we look forward to next time. We're going to start a new series. I think it's going to be about serial killers, but I'm not sure because I might freak out and not pursue it. So we'll see what happens. But thank you very much for
I'll bolster you.
Yeah, your time and attention, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Okay.
Yep. Thanks so much, Sands. I loved the write-up today. It was really great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your insights as always.
Of course. I love you.
Love you too. Bye, everyone.
Okay. All right. Bye.